What's up? That's Bart Robley right there on the drums.
Woo.
Drums.
I got my drums too. This is Jeremy Steinkohler tuning. I just did a jazz thing and I tried to make my drums sound like yours.
There you go.
I'm flattered. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Drummers Education Connection. So great to be back after a couple weeks on vacation. I have been, and Yoda is my master, and Rick has also been the way he has been from his drums. And we're grateful to Fred Fisher for jumping in, and Jim Royal. Was Jim Royal on here also?
Jim was not. Jim was not.
We're grateful to Jim Royal anyway, just because he's a great.
We are.
And we're happy to be back. The band is back. We're taking it back on the road. And we're here today.
We worked through our differences and worked it out in a contract. Our lawyers talk to each other.
Sometimes it's best to build in a little break so you don't get sick of each other.
Yeah, we wanted to spend more time in India and studying with the shamans and recording in the studio rather than touring. So now we're back.
Right. This might be our final record. Just kidding. We all get along. We missed each other. We love each other. We're happy to be back, and we're happy to be here for you guys, doing our thing, talking about drumming and drum lessons and drum teaching and music business and all kinds of other stuff. And before we jump in, what's up, Fred? Look what I got.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. I'm still hatless.
You need one of these, Bart, to shield your head from being sunburned.
Nice.
He said
cool.
I was getting one. I'm hatless.
So, before we get started talking about today's topic, we're going to go around and talk about our good things. And also a reminder that if you want to support what we do, we have a Patreon page. Chip's going to pop the link in there. And we would love for you to check it out and see all these great things we give back to you when you give to us. And that's what this is all about, giving back and building our community up. So today's topic, just for reference, is why do some students progress faster than others, which is a really, really great, interesting topic. I've got lots of thoughts to share about it. But before we jump in, we're going to start with good things. Let's go with Rick. Rick, what's happened that's good for you, buddy?
Man, just had a beautiful week in Florida, in the Melbourne area with my wife and my mom, who's 97. And my mom is doing great, walking down to the beach, going out to eat, and she's in assisted living, and they just take such good care of her. It's like being on a cruise ship, and you can have a fabulous life in your 90s and beyond. It's possible, folks.
Beautiful.
A lot of it is just positive attitude and sweetness, and she's sweet to everyone who takes care of her, so they're sweet back.
That's so cool.
Go figure.
I think if positive attitude lengthens your life, Rick's going to live to be like 200 years old.
He's going to be like Noah. He's going to have kids at 800.
900. Yeah. Or like Yoda. He'll be like Yoda, right? This could do a lot, but you're 700.
Riddles I play, yes.
All right. That's good. That's awesome, Rick. Chip, what's going on? It's good for you.
Hey, man, not much is new. I'm just playing at the church and teaching through the week and enjoying the summer out here at 119 degrees in Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, damn, that's brutal.
That's about it. It's just business as usual.
Brutal.
Wow.
Bart was telling us a story before we got on about he had a gig in the desert and his drums started melting.
Oh, it was horrible.
He's going to tell that story later.
Yeah.
Bart, what's going on that's good for you?
Everything's going great. I playing in Vegas this weekend with the SMB. We leave Thursday, we leave Friday, play Saturday, come back home Sunday. So it'll be a quick turnaround. Looking forward to that. I always like going out there, playing, seeing our friends. It's a new venue, so we're excited about that. I got off the phone this morning with my friend Sam at Soda Records. My side project, The Ruins, got a little record deal with them at the beginning of this year. And we're going to have 2 singles released here real soon. A real heavy hitter called Bone on Bone for all you metalheads out there. Jeff Duncan from Armored Saint played guitar on it, and it's a killer tune. That will be out. We're looking at August 28th. That song will be out, so we're excited about that. And Been doing a lot of recording in here. I've opened it up, redid some stuff in the studio. I'm cutting vocals here now. So if anybody either wants to cut some tracks here or wants me to cut tracks for them, I can do that. If somebody wants to come in here and play the drums and record here, we can do that. We can talk about all that. And this is a fantastic room for vocals. We've been cutting some vocals in here, and man, they are sounding so good. So if anybody wants to use the room, it's an hourly rate. We can talk about that. That's what I got going on. Jeremy, what about you? You just got off vacation, but you got some stuff going on. I know you do.
I do. I had a gig this past weekend. Went really, really great with this Jennifer Jolly and Friends is the name of the group, and it's kind of roots music from around the world. A lot of original stuff. Really super eclectic. Probably the most eclectic band I've ever played in. With this terrific pedal steel player, Max Butler, who used to run with Chuck Prophet in his band. So anyways, great gig, really fun, and just had a couple of small mini vacations. We went up to Lake Tahoe and paddled on the lake and went hiking and hung out, and just glorious up there. And Evan's coming home from Europe, his Europe trip tomorrow. And we're excited to see him. And he played some great gigs at Umbria Jazz Festival, North Sea Jazz Festival in Rotterdam, and Vienne in France. So super excited to hear firsthand about his experiences.
How many gigs total did he do on that tour?
There were 3 main festivals, and then there was like 4 other smaller gigs, like in towns in Italy.
Cool, man.
Yeah, and France. Yeah, super cool. Yeah. Like,
very cool.
He's like, how come he's playing in Europe and I'm not playing in Europe?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're super happy for him. Anyway, so jumping in today, why do some students progress faster than others? This is I don't think it's important that students compare themselves to other students.
Thank you.
That's not the name of the game here, but we certainly perceive it, right, as teachers, because we get to work with all these people and we're dialed in on their progress and how they work. And I know I see it, and I know you guys see it too. Like, you get some students who race, right, and the curve is super steep, and then other students, and it's like plodding and painfully slow. So who wants to jump in? Start talking about your experience with this part.
I think it's really easy to broad brush it. It's an incredible subject. I really think it's easy to go, well, this person practices and this person doesn't. And that might be the case. I think practice and work ethic is one thing. I think some people naturally either understand or maybe have a bit more coordination issues that they don't deal with than others, But one of the big ones, and I want to jump into the deep end of the pool on this right out of the gates, especially when you're talking about younger students, kids, through teenage years. One of the ones that's always overlooked, I think, is having a team around them, having their parents back their play, having your parents on your side, having a student's, having that team around them, mom and dad taking them to the lessons. If they got to go to a rehearsal place, really back in their play, making sure that their practice, chiming them on and being a champion for them, waving the flag for them, and I think is very important. I think it's often overlooked, when parents do that. I think that, I think it's very important. I think, that parental support is important.
No doubt. And, half my students are adults. Well, more than half of them, actually. It's almost all adults now that I really, really think about it. And so the parental support isn't a factor, but I think it's the family support, and then being like in the community of drummers.
Yeah.
Being around drummers makes a big difference. Like if you're an adult and you're drumming, or in your 20s, and going to concerts is a big thing. I think it's like being in the culture, going to drum clinics, taking lessons, and then finding a teacher who has proactive approaches. Like Jeremy, you have BandWorks, so people can take drum lessons and then you hook them up for a concert and a band. So they've got an outlet, and I think having that outlet makes a big difference. So you could see some progress for all the work, get some outcome for all the work you put in.
So
I want to.
what you're talking about, Rick, is motivation, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when you have the opportunity to play in an ensemble pretty quickly in your drumming, career or whatever, whatever you're just 6 months in. It's motivating because you want to be part of the group. You don't want to let them down. You got the anxiety about the performance and you want to make sure you do a good job. And so all that stuff kind of motivates you to practice and get your act together. Yeah.
That's right.
I want to say something in regards to Jeremy's school too. I want to champion his school, but I want to say something that I think is important about it. And that is this: I have a student down here, an adult student she takes lessons every week. She is here like she's always here. She works so hard at being a good drummer, and she got involved with let's call it School X, and they put together ensembles and they go and they perform. And everything about the school, the ensemble, and the person that is kind of the leader of the school, everything that she tells me, fail. Not on her part, but on the school, because it's not what you guys are doing. It is this particular school or person is kind of doing it more to boast themselves, not the student.
Right.
Now, the reason that I bring this up and why somebody would progress is because she's stepped away from it now. She's told me a couple things that have been said at performances, like from the stage to the audience. And I'm like, why would you say that?
Right.
Whereas your school, everything that I saw when we did Deck Day at Bandworks was 100% like, let's lift these people up.
100%.
Doesn't matter. It's hey, this is about you playing your song. This isn't about me as the teacher. This is about you playing your song, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be involved with something like that, like what Rick is talking about with Bandworks, or with a music school where they're putting an ensemble together, make sure that you're in it and that they're in it for the right reasons. Yeah. You're paying for something. Make sure that you're getting that. If you're not getting for that, ask for a refund. Get out of there, because that's gonna hold you back. I believe it's not going to champion you forward. Maybe I'm wrong.
You gotta find a program that's got the right values that align with yours. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Chip, do you have something that you want to add? Or
I don't know. I'm interested in this topic. I'm listening to the show like a fan, because I'm just like, wow, this is great. It's a great thing to think about. I have a lot of students. A lot of them progress at different rates. Sometimes it's the comprehension ability, the ability to receive information. Some of them seem to lack that compared to others. And in others, like you said, some of them just skyrocket. Some of them just seem to want it more. They seem to be more into it. They seem to be more engaged with the lessons. And they come back the next week and they're like, okay, I got that. What's next? And so I don't really know why. I think the ones that want it more seem to progress faster than the ones that seem like they could go either way. And I do agree that with a full team behind you with support, that makes 100% difference.
I like what you said. I find that, I feel like as a teacher that it's my responsibility to help them find that motivation. And like, I'll have some kids who come in and they're like 100% pedal to the metal, green lights, practicing hard, working hard. They're fully into it. And I'm like, oh, what a dream, right? Those are such fun students to work with, and they're just sponges and they soak it up. And then you get the kids who come in and like, they want to be there, but they're just don't seem to be motivated or as engaged. And I feel like that's on me. Like I've got to figure out a way to make it fun and spark their interest and, expose them to stuff that's going to be inspiring on other drummers. Sometimes playing a little bit, in their lesson can do it. Or just turning them on to music that they like and want to do, honestly, it doesn't always work. I mean, there's some people who come and they take lessons for a while and they don't stay with it. And it's like, okay, they were experimenting and this wasn't the thing for them. But that's a big part. I think Jim made this really great conversation starter point, which he said, everyone's born with a certain level of gifts for music that includes a higher level of natural coordination, just for starters. And I think that's true. I've had students over the years come in, and right off the get-go, you can see, oh, their brains are wired in such a way that this makes sense to them, and they can absorb it and play things very quickly. It makes sense to them. And other people who come in and they move much more slowly. It doesn't make sense. They're not as much in their bodies. Maybe they weren't athletic, or who knows,
Right.
There's all different ways your brains work. But I have found that it's not necessarily the students who start with the most that end up reaching the highest goals. In other words, I've had students come in who have clearly ample natural gifts, but don't do the work. And they kind of coast for a while, and it's kind of easy, but because it's easy, maybe they don't, for whatever reason, they don't put in the effort. And I've got other students who come in and, oh boy, every rock beat is like a hard-won battle. And every week, they're making incremental progress, but of course it starts to snowball. And over time, those kids who started with, or students who started with less natural gifts, can surpass the ones that started with more natural gifts because they put the work in.
Yes.
So, anyone can get good. Certainly, when you have that combination of whatever natural, whatever ability, and you're doing the work, those are the drummers that really, really, hit the stratosphere with their abilities.
Yes, that's like the good news. If certain, I think we can probably all agree some people are more naturally gifted, but the good news is if you have the passion, you you apply yourself, which is what this entire show is all about, applying yourselves,
right.
Then you can get it done. And just because one player might be able to do something really, really fancy and complicated, it doesn't mean that they're a better drummer. Like, you might just be a pocket drummer, and that's fantastic. Playing a simple beat, like, who's a better drummer? A person who has all these fancy polyrhythmic things and all this rudimental stuff, or someone who can just have good time and play a simple beat? It's subjective.
Right, of course.
As long as you enjoy it.
Playing for the song. I want to echo something before we get too far off of this that you said, Jeremy. And that is that when somebody's not comprehending something, or they're not grasping it, and they're really struggling with it, I'm exactly what you said. I'm like, where am I failing? Why are they not understanding this? I don't put it on the student. I put it on myself. Like, am I okay? I've got to go around the tree this way or this way or whatever. How are I going to get there? But I think that's important to students out there and young drummers out there, that if you're not grasping it, your teacher needs to try to grasp it for you, if you will, and then hand it to you.
I think one of the most important and vital things you can do as an effective teacher is teach your students how to practice effectively.
Right.
Because, a lot of students who come in who've already played drums, it's clear to me they never learned how to practice. So they work on either the wrong things or the right things for too little amount of time, or they practice them too fast all the time. And this is a huge, huge determiner of the progress you make. So, and how fast it is, right? So I think if you, and I take it on myself to spend a lot of time teaching my students how to practice smart, meaning accurately, accuracy over speed. That's the big one, right? Because you make more progress that way. The way your brain works. If you practice something wrong or fudgy or 50-50, sometimes half the time right, half the time wrong, you get really good at doing whatever you're doing. So if you're doing it wrong, you're going to get good at doing it wrong. If you're playing it sloppy, you're going to get good at playing it sloppy, because you're just repeating. Right? You're just working the neural connection between brain and body. And so this is part of the problem, and why some students don't progress as fast is because they're practicing sloppy. They're not practicing clean, and they're not being disciplined enough to go as slowly as they need to, which is often much, much more slowly than they think they need to go.
Or some of them are only playing the things that they're good at.
That's another really important.
Yeah.
That's right. People fall into that trap of, like, they get good at a handful of things. They do all those things. They get good at it's a self-propelling cycle with that, but then they don't actually acquire things new or different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I wanna-
not getting stuck in that rut, not getting stuck in your happy places is tough, because I think that when it comes to practice, I tell this to my students all the time. When you're practicing, you're not supposed to sound good.
Right.
When
Right.
you're practicing and you're doing something new, you're supposed to sound not good.
Right.
You're supposed to struggle, and then pretty soon it slowly but surely starts to sound like something, and then it's in your bag of tricks before you know it.
That's
And
right.
sometimes the before you know it, it might be a year,
Right.
but that's the part that that you have to convey to them, and then they end up figuring it out.
Right.
Um,
And that requires humility, and that requires patience and
Yep.
perseverance. Right. And
Yep.
those are three really important qualities that you need to progress,
Right.
'cause otherwise you're just working on stuff that makes you feel good because you already sound good at it, and you're not actually, getting a whole lot better. If something's the harder something is, the slower, the more it's going to, the heavier lift it's going to be, and the slower you're going to need to go. And part of the good job of a teacher is to make sure that the stuff that we give to our students is the right stuff at the right time, right? Because if we give you, if Rick comes in and it's his first, month of lessons, and I bust out a David Garibaldi, linear funk groove, like, forget about it. He could be working on that for a year and not get it, right? And that's a recipe for frustration. So I've got to give Rick something that works for his ability level, that he can be challenged with,
Yep.
but that he can succeed with.
Right.
And when he succeeds with the work, then we build on that, and we keep building and building.
Creating a game you can win.
Exactly.
Something tangible and inspiring that I do like my people to feel good after their lesson, and
oh yeah.
I feel that inspiration is just gonna drive them to practice more. And
I think when you get, go ahead. Sorry.
It's you're trying to create this cycle of
Empowerment.
Yeah, empowerment and feeling good that makes them want to do more, which makes them feel better, which makes them want to do more, as opposed to the other way around, right? You give them something that's overwhelming or too difficult, and then they get frustrated, and then they stop practicing, and then they're frustrated, they're not practicing, and then it's kind of a downward spiral or an upward spiral.
Yeah,
I think telling the students too to kind of look backwards and look at their accomplishments, because there are those points where it's like, okay, I started with AC/DC, but now I am working on the David Garibaldi thing, and I'm just killing myself and I can't do it. Well, remember when you couldn't play the AC/DC thing and how hard you had to work for that. Remind yourself that take that success that you had there and use that success. Use it in the part that is now challenging to you. And then also motivate yourself, I tell the student, you can motivate yourself and create that determination by going, yeah, at one point I was really bad at playing this, but I've worked my way up to this. So now I've got to put in that same amount of determination to move forward through this particular piece, whatever the piece may be.
That's another reason. That's another reason having your goals and your drum book logged out, having like songs that you wanted to play and having those listed in the same book, being able to go back to those pages and relive, well, wow, what I went through to get that, and how hard that was, or how did I accomplish that goal and actually learn that song, gives you fuel for the fire. You know what I mean? It funds the expedition for that next level.
Right.
Well, that's right. And also, what?
Chip, that sounds like my book, which is all song references.
It is.
Yep. It's getting people grooving to songs right away.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I think an important piece too of progress is managing frustration. That has to do often with expectations, right? And so, you have to remember that the horizon will forever feel like it's receding.
Yes.
Yes. A lot of students come in and they're like, when do I arrive? When am I,
Right.
I walk into this room and look at this drum set, and I ask myself that question every day.
Right. And no,
Every day. I'm like, when am I going to figure this thing out? And honestly, and I know I'm maybe being a little bit silly, but no, I really, there's times where like I'll watch one of you guys play, or I'll watch some drum video, or I'll watch Garibaldi or Steve Gadd, and I'm just like, what the hell? You know what? And I think that's where you got to realize what you just said, Jeremy, that horizon's always, you're always chasing it. You're always trying to, if you get better. And I'm coming at that from the teacher's aspect. So, I tell the students the same thing. Look, I'm a student of the instrument myself, first and foremost, right? I mean, if I always have 3 books that I'm working out of, and myself personally, and I encourage my students to do the same thing. And I think you always have to be getting better. I spend a lot of time right here. Okay, how do I do this? And then you carry it forward. So
I have a question for you guys, because I get this question a lot with new students.
Okay.
They ask this question: how long before I get good?
Right.
So how do you guys respond to that question?
Week, 10 days. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal.
3 years.
So my answer is, what does good mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we got to dig a little deeper to get to what that means for you.
Right.
Right. Because that means something different for me, probably. So
right.
If it's like, well, I want to play this song or that song or be in a band, okay, then we can start digging into like, these are the skills that you need. This is usually more or less how much time it takes, but so much depends on how hard you practice.
Right.
And, also what you're coming to the table with.
I was watching it was at a drum clinic by Vic Firth, and Steve Smith was the speaker. It was one of Dom's things that he did back in the day before his passing, obviously. And Steve was talking about how he was practicing at the Drummers Collective in New York, and that he would have a lot of drummers stand outside of his room and listen to him. And he goes, "Oh, it's kind of hard because I'm practicing, and I don't sound good because I'm practicing." And what you just said, Jeremy, that's why I brought this up, because I always tell that story, and I always joke around, and I say, I think Steve Smith's idea of not sounding good and my idea of not sounding good are 2 different things. But it's true. I mean, you reverse that. Okay, what is good to you? Your idea of good is going to be different than my idea of good. And then, and that, again, that can go on forward, right? I watch all you guys play. Jim Royals watching, Fred's watching, all these people are watching that are great drummers. You watch them playing, like, oh my gosh, okay, I got to do that. How did Jim do that? How did Fred do that? And you up your game. And I think you have to be able to explain that to the student, that it's always going to be that way. And I also think that it's important, and I didn't catch this till later in life, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's important to be a champion of yourself as well. And I don't think it's narcissistic or conceited to go, yeah, I've accomplished this. I've been able to do this, and I'm good at this. It's not boasting or anything. It's just going, yeah, I accomplished that, and feeling good about it. I think that it's important for the students to realize that early on, because I didn't. It took me years to be able to do that. And I think I kind of held myself back with that. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to celebrate your wins. When you have a student that's struggling with something, and then they finally get it, and then it's on to the next thing. It's like, wait a minute, hold on, let's do that one again a few times and do a couple of victory laps while we celebrate the fact that we can actually play this part now.
Yeah.
You spend a little time, like, it's like when a friend of mine loses something, he spends 5 or 10 minutes frantically looking for whatever it lost. And then, like, when you find it, it's on to the next thing that's lost, rather than just let me spend a moment here and be grateful for this win, this amount of progress that we made.
Yeah. A lot of my students, I'll say, hey, you're doing a great job. And because, they're playing the beat that the drummer played to the song, and they're locking in, and they're tight, and they're doing what the drummer did on the record. and I'll say, great job. And they're like, oh, I think you're just saying that. And I'm like,
yes.
well, this is the drum part, and you played the drum part.
Well,
So that's a good indicator. So one of the things I've started doing is set up video cameras on the student kits and mic, and I'm starting to make videos for my students in the lessons. Let's videotape you and make a cool drum cover right here at your lesson, so you can see. And that's worked really, really well, because some of the people like, whoa, you got, over 500 views. So
that's cool.
That's a good barometer, and it's really, really working for me as a teacher, for being able to provide that.
I have that a lot too with students, where I'll say in the moment in the lesson, great job or excellent, and they'll be like, what do you mean I'm playing it so slow? Right? Like, well, yeah, but you're playing it right for the first time. For the last 10 minutes you've been trying to be going too fast, and now, like, good job. You're practicing effectively now. But they're hung up on the results. We're all results oriented, and they want it to sound good quickly. And so a lot of these drummers, they're, as adults, their ears may be more developed, so they know when they're playing, like, yeah, this doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Whereas the kids are maybe oblivious, but and I say, well, okay, I appreciate that you can hear that it's not where you want it to be yet, and you can imagine what it's supposed to sound like. So how are we going to get from here to there, right?
Right.
You got to get it right. You got to get it clean, and you got to get it smooth, and you got to get it relaxed, and your motions have to be right. And then the speed will come from that, not the other way around.
I got a question for you guys. You ever run into, I know you guys probably run into this, where a student, they stop, right? They're like, 1, 2, and 1, and 1, 1. Wait,
yeah,
1, and they just kind of this endless stopping, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen that with a lot of students. How do you get past that? What do you say to your student to, like, just play, don't stop?
Go slower.
Okay.
I have them go play along to songs that are listed in my book, and let's just play the hi-hat part, and you're playing Tempted by Squeeze. You're just playing the 8th note. Let's get in the habit of just keeping that 8th note. All right, let's add the backbeat, the 2 and 4 on the snare, and that's your lesson. You're doing the hand part of that song, and it drills this consistency, and don't make a face if you mess up. And so now we just have to add the 3rd limb.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries.
This to me doubles back to something you were talking about earlier, Bart, which is this distinction between understanding and execution. Like, and this is really important, like, as a teacher, to recognize too. Like, sometimes someone will come in after a week of practicing, and they'll say, "Oh, this thing you gave me was really hard." I'm like, "Okay, great. Let's start with that. What was hard about it?" Well, I couldn't get it. Well, did you understand it? And sometimes they didn't, right? So they couldn't read it, or they didn't understand the thing, or I didn't explain it well enough or something, or I did and they forgot. Yeah. So, well, that wasn't hard. How could you possibly, be good at something you don't understand? It's like trying to read, whatever, a foreign language. Like, it's impossible. So first, let's make sure you understand it. That's my job, to make sure you walk out of here understanding everything we went over today. And I write notes in their journal, about what they were supposed to practice. And then the second piece is the execution. So sometimes, they understood it perfectly, but they couldn't get it because it was difficult to actually play. And that's where they're like, okay, well, you're going too fast, right? And so you're not getting it because you keep trying to go too fast, and it's too much information for your brain to process too quickly.
Yeah. And
there's a hiccup in there. And then you do the hiccup over and over. And like I said before, you get good at the hiccup. And now it's
right
to undo it and do the right thing, because you're getting good at doing the wrong thing. So that comes down to just breaking it down into small little bites, right? And so instead of, you're trying to get through an 8-measure passage, well, let's get the first measure. Let's get the second measure. Let's get the first and second together. Great. Let's do 3, then 4. Let's do 3 and 4. Let's do 1 through 4, right? A lot of breaking into pieces and then building back together. And then, no problem. But it's so easy to spin your wheels, to grind, to work hard, but not work well.
Yes. Thank you. That's what I was looking. I knew you were going to say that. Thank you. Yeah.
Like I had just last week, I had a student come in and say, "Oh, this fill, kicked my butt in this song. It was a Cars tune." And I said, "Well, how did you practice it?" I said, "Well, I just played the song." And I said, "So you got one crack at the fill every time the song, for every time you played through the song, you got one crack at the fill." Well, yeah. And I just couldn't do it. It was so frustrating. I was like, "Well, what if we just work on the fill by itself?" And
Yeah.
like,
Which song, Jeremy?
What's
Which
that?
car song? Which car song?
Just what I needed.
And
then we work on the fill, and then we work on the measure before the fill, and then the transition, and then the coming out of it, right? And then we iron that wrinkle. Instead of ironing the whole shirt, we just want to iron the wrinkle, right? Like, be efficient with your use of time, and then 5 minutes later, they're playing the fill just great.
Yeah.
So there's a really important distinction between understanding and execution, and sort of we have to make sure they understand, and then teach them how to teach themselves to execute.
I think also, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Most of my lessons, I try to split in half, if you will. Okay, we're going to work on the drum set stuff. We're going to work on that song and do this. Okay, let's get over to the pad or the snare drum and let's work on some rudimental stuff, right? Let's get our hands in shape. I think when it comes down to, we've talked about this before, the how do you play cool drum fills? Having a good, at least basic foundation of the rudiments. Understanding the rudiments is so incredibly important. I think to not have that, I think, you're almost doing yourself a disservice by not having. It's kind of like the way I look at it. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Music does one of two things: it drives or it swings, and that's kind of across the board. And yes, there's some things that swing harder, some things that swing left. But if you can't swing, you're cutting your options of what you can do in half, right? You can't, it's half the songs you can't play because you can't swing. Well, there's a lot of fill ideas or solo ideas that you're not going to be able to pull off if you don't understand the rudiments. And a lot of students don't want to work on the rudiments. Would you guys, am I incorrect?
You are 100% correct. And I feel that as drum teachers, we have an awesome responsibility, because especially at our age and level of experience, we were all raised with learning the rudiments, and then you apply it to drum set. And that was the way that people learned how many decades ago. And we're in a new quick paced, fast era. Mm-hmm. If I want to lose a student, I will teach them the rudiments.
Exactly. I'm
sorry, it's so controversial, but that is how I will lose students. Now, if they've got the bite and they can groove, if they've got the passion and they can now play a bunch of songs and they're really into it, then we can start squeaking in the rudiments. So I find that I've got to teach my students the way they learn for this era.
There you go.
And you're right. I totally agree with you that how important the rudiments are, but I find that I've got to squeak them in. And it's an era where people want a quick, fast-paced result. They're so fast now, they come in, or they want a result so fast now, they come in, they're not drummers, and they say, hey, I want to play Fool in the Rain and Rosanna.
Right.
And I'm like, you've got to understand rhythm and you've got to develop your hands first. So I've got to kind of reel them back and say, let's play Billie Jean first. Tick, boom, tick. So
I used to say, that's a great point, Rick. I used to say, back when I was running from dinosaurs, I used to tell my students, I'm like, look, man, we live in so long ago, we live in a microwave world, right? You put your burrito in the microwave and you have to wait for 2 minutes for your burrito, and you get frustrated because your burrito's not ready.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you used to have to go make the food. There wasn't any frozen food to put in the microwave, And well, now the microwave is old school, I mean, you just want to, where's my food? DoorDash, bring it to me. You don't want to even do that. So I agree with you. I totally agree with that. I think that And I do agree that you know, if you want to lose students, okay, let's work on paradiddles for 6 months. That's not what I'm saying. I just think that we have to teach them, and then at some point when you start working them into the lesson, that will make the cool fill, the solo idea a bit easier around the kit. Am I
that is true, Bart? And I have to compliment you too. When we did our deck day, where we all had 45 minutes up in the Bay Area, and then when we did it in at Aquarian, each of us taught for 45 minutes, and you did a lesson on molar technique, you know, which is a very technique driven, and you made it really, really fun. And
thank you.
You really are good at that. So
thank you. I try to break it down.
Yeah. I mean, we might have to look at ourselves, our teachers, what we're better at teaching too. Where I might look at, say, man, if you want to study rudiments, Bart might be your guy, you know, or maybe you should work with, people should consider working with different teachers for different things.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah. I tell my students all the time, you know, I'll be your teacher as long as you want me to be, but there's seek out, look under every rock. You know, if you really want to do this, there's information everywhere. You've got to seek it out. So don't just study with me and Rick and Jeremy and Chip. And, you know, hell, you can call up Garibaldi and get a lesson from him. You know, I mean, it's probably not as easy to get with Garibaldi as it would be with me, but you know what I mean? Seek it out. Ask and you will find.
You know what, Bart, that's a perfect segue to our Patreon. If you donate to our Patreon, you can get some online lessons with all of us.
That's right. And that's a perfect segue, because guess what, people? Centerstream Publishing is Centerstream Publishing has been our sponsor, and they are really great. And again, I'm just going to show the piece that they gave to me, if I can find it here. I build it up and it's not there. And it is a piece that I did, ASAP drums, talking about rudiments. And on the back, it has a little solo of mine called The Attack of Mark the Shark.
Is that a picture of you playing the drum in the tux?
That is me.
Bart.
Yes, that is me.
Oh yeah, but you got a little salsa spill on your tuxedo, Bart.
I did. Hey, and Bart's Salsa, dude, and Fred, if you're still watching, I've done some marketing testing and shipped out some salsas yesterday to somebody local. Yeah. The salsa's coming, guys. Bart's Salsa. Anyway, so ASAP Drumming is on Centerstream Publishing. If you play drums, check those out. If you want to get a copy of this, it's the original 26 rudiments with the solo on the back. It's a fun piece. I use it all the time with my students. It's on my website, bartrobley.com. It's $5. Come on. Practically giving it away. Go to bartrobley.com. Give me $5. I'll mail one of those to you. And also, if you do buy it from me, incidentally, I throw in this really cool paradiddle thing that I do, these paradiddle groupings and some stickers and all kinds of fun stuff. So if you buy it, you get more than just that.
Centerstream has all kinds of books, right? Not just
everything.
drum books, but they've got method books for all these different instruments, as well as like
they do.
History books and books on musical topics. So really cool website. Check it out, centerstream.com.
Very good stuff. Very good stuff.
Centerstream-usa.com. I put a link in the comments.
Nice.
Very good. So there we go on that. So thank you, Centerstream. Thank you, Aquarian Drumheads. You guys are always awesome. Oh, speaking of Aquarian, real quick, congratulations to our friend Fred Fisher, who is now officially in the Aquarian family. So anyway, back to teaching. Jeremy, what do you? Go ahead. You have something to say. Go ahead.
I do, yeah. You know, I tell when I took lessons with my sort of formative teacher through my high school years. I tell my students about this. The first 45 minutes out of every 60 were on the pad. And at the time I hated it. So, you know, it was like vegetables, and more broccoli. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now looking back, I'm so grateful that he taught me that way because my hands are where they are because of that work that he made me do.
Yeah.
Now, like Rick is saying, that's not for the faint of heart. Like you've got to be in it at that point to be like, okay, I can see the mountaintop in the distance, and I can see, and all this work is going to get me there. And you have to trust and believe that if you put the work in, you're going to arrive at that place where you want to be with your hands. And of course, that mountaintop, just you never reach it. But my point is that technical work is really important, and I agree with Rick that you don't want to start too heavy on it because it's a turnoff and it's not what people have in mind when they think they want to play the drums.
Right.
But if you just learn beats and fills and that's all you do, you're going to plateau pretty quickly.
Agreed.
So that's when you get to a point like drummers come in, they've been playing for a couple of years, and they're like, I can play all these sort of simple pocket grooves, but I can't do all this stuff that I'm hearing. I don't have a big fill vocabulary, and etc. Yes. Okay, well, that's because you haven't done the work with your hands that you need to do to get to that. Equip yourself with that toolbox, right?
Yep.
So, are you guys familiar with Alan Dawson's rudiment ritual?
Yes.
So this is a program that the great Alan Dawson devised that's 11 pages long, and it's basically a rudiment mashup with all kinds of permutations, and it's meant to be played all the way through from beginning to end. And you can do it on top of a foot ostinato, and you can practice it with brushes. And this is one of the greatest tools that's out there in the drumming world. You can probably just find a free PDF of it online, but it's also in.
There's free PDFs. So there's a whole website with it online.
Yeah.
Can you put that in the comments, Chip?
Sure.
This you definitely, if you don't know what you're doing, you absolutely need the help of a teacher to get through this. It's not easy, but boy, is it comprehensive. And if you do it every day, it will take you a couple of months just to get through it once. But then once you can get through it, you can start working into your practice routine. It can take about anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes to make your way through one pass of it. But it's one of the best tools I know for really developing your hands and getting that rudimental vocabulary so that you can do all the stuff that you're hearing these drummers doing that's more sophisticated.
That's
when we did, Jeremy, when we did Deck Day up there, and you we went and saw you play at the Fourth Bore, you guys were playing, obviously a lot of really cool second line stuff. That's kind of what the band does. Right. And man, you had a couple of solos in there, and your hands were just like butter. It was so awesome to hear you play those solos. Was some of that stuff that you were doing, was that rudimental stuff? Was it stuff that you learned from the teacher? Was it part of the Alan Dawson thing? Talk to us a little bit about what that is.
Well, first of all, thank you for that high compliment. Yeah, it's absolutely rudimental. So that second line stuff is all parade style drumming, which is a rudimental thing. That's where it comes from. That's what parade drumming is. But it's got a kind of greasiness or looseness in New Orleans that's, a little bit sort of deliberate, sloppy, swingy stuff. So, you have to listen to a lot of that music to get a feel for it. But yeah, it's all based on rudimental stuff. A lot of flams and rolls and flam rudiments and 6-stroke roll stuff. All that stuff. Flam paradiddle, triplets, all. Yeah. So it's this thing I say to my students when we're talking about, especially when they're wanting to learn, when it's time to learn to solo. If they're jazz drummers, and they're coming up in their jazz program and they're learning to swing a little bit and maybe play a couple of simple fills, but then it's like, okay, now trading fours or trade it and make a drum solo. Well, if you don't have vocabulary, it's kind of hard to come up with stuff that's very sophisticated to say. You can keep it simple and do da da dum 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 da dum da 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 da, and that can work, and that's good to learn phrasing and all that stuff. But to get that juicy stuff, you gotta acquire the vocabulary in your hands, and that's all rudimental based. Yeah, that's what all think about it. When the first drum set player started playing the drum,
bless you.
You guys know the answer to this, but I'll put it out there. Whoever wants to answer, when was the drum set first invented?
Rick, go.
Civil War era. Well, in New Orleans, we had during the silent movie era. where different cultures were bringing their instruments together.
You're going even further back. When was it like a drum set that like it looks like today, where they had pedals?
1920s.
Yeah, like 1910s, 20s, right? So,
Yeah.
so what did the first? This is a new instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It is.
All of a sudden, there's
Right.
these pedals that you can work on top with your hands.
Right.
What did the first drum set players know how to do? They knew how to play the snare drum.
Yep.
Right. And what was snare drumming at that time? Up until then, it was rudiments.
Rudiments.
Right? That's
Yep.
what snare drumming was in
Yep.
musical context. And so
Yes.
the first drum set players were rudimental players naturally, and they
Yes.
applied their technique and their vocabulary to this new thing with the pedals and the configuration of the drum. And so this is, drumming evolved from modern drum set playing evolved from rudimental playing. So,
Right.
it's you're only going to get so far without it.
Right. And that's one of the reasons, back to the subject matter, why do some students progress faster?
Hmm.
And I really have to stand by this. I think that some drum students progress faster. And again, not in a competitive way to, oh, I'm better than that guy or that gal, but okay, I have a grasp of these grooves and these songs, and I have a grasp of how to play paradiddles and radamucues. And, some people, you say, okay, play a pataflawflaw for me. And they try to make you a crepe, they don't know what a pataflawflaw is. But understanding that what that is, what is a pataflawflaw? What is drag paradiddle number 2? And how can you play a drag paradiddle number 2 as a cool fill idea? I think that it's a necessary thing to understand. Even if you're not like the greatest rudimental drummer in the world, you're not going to go audition for the Blue Knights or something, but just having a basic understanding of them. Hey, if I want doon dut dooga dugga 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 crash, or forehand, I want to play this crash symbol. You can accomplish that by just playing a paradiddle. Right, I can play this crash over here instead of this crash because I want to use that one for whatever reason. And that's a very simplistic thought process with that, but it works, right?
If you zoom out a little bit or a lot and look at the drum set just as a physical thing, it's a collection of things that we can hit. Right? It is. Nothing more.
It is.
And a collection of things we can hit and make sounds with. And we generally hit them with these pieces of wood. Sometimes you use a rod or a brush or a mallet, blah, blah, blah. But let's just say, for this discussion, you're hitting the collection of things with sticks of wood. So, and the way that's done in music and popular music has evolved quite a bit since the origin of the instrument, right? So you get people playing the drums now doing stuff that had never been done before, pushing things forward. We can all name our favorite drummers who are innovators and all that.
Right.
But the rudiments are this sort of already developed system through lots of trial and error and musical practice of like, here's all these different ways to manipulate the pieces of wood to make different things happen. Different sequences, different sounds, different patterns, hitting them, flams and drags and accents and rolls and, and like, if you work that stuff, it gives you the vocabulary to be able to move the sticks and hit the things with intention.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of that simple.
Right. Right.
So like, why would you not want to acquire those skills? Right.
Right.
But just big picture, forget about, I know you just want to play, Tom Petty songs. I get it. Learn your beats and play your Tom Petty songs. Great. And you should. And if that's all you ever want to do, that's also fine.
Yeah.
But if you want more, if you want to be able to play the drums, you got to acquire the vocabulary.
I think that
students who are in school bands, because I found that if a student is in any kind of like high school band or middle school band, then they're easier to teach the rudiments because they can actually see a result right away. They have to play a role every day.
Yes.
Right. I have middle school and elementary through high school, and I have a lot of adult students too. I think with the rudiments with adult students, it's it is kind of like like you were talking about, and thank you for the compliment, by the way, Rick, on the deck day thing on Moeller. And I teach Moeller for a number of reasons. It's efficiency, also, not hurting yourself by gripping the sticks too tight and always laying into the drums, giving yourself carpal tunnel syndrome or tendonitis or something like that. But then also being able to show, just being able to show the students, okay, look, this is how you would execute this by using Radamacues. This is how you can play a really cool drum fill idea using drag paradiddle number 2. I just threw that out there a minute ago, so I'll throw it out again. I think it does come, again, back to the topic at hand. Why do some students progress faster? It also, the teacher, I think we have to take a lot of the responsibility. Sometimes if I can't demonstrate to you why you should play the rudiments and why they are useful on the drum set, why would I even talk about that?
Right,
I'm not gonna show you how to rebuild a turbo inside of a jet. I don't know how to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I know how to play, okay, here's how you can play this grouping idea, and it's made up of paradiddles and paradiddle diddles and a Radamacue, and here's how you can play it around the kit. After they've done the Tom Petty thing and everything, like you said, Jeremy, I think that it's our responsibility to do that. And like Dom used to talk about, it's our responsibility to keep the art form alive. Right. And I think because without it, it dies. Right. It just does. It dies. And so I think it's important.
Yep.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say we're almost out of time here, and I thought maybe we could wrap up by going right back on target and pose this question to each of us.
Okay.
What are the sort of 3 main reasons, let's say, why some students progress faster than others to you guys?
Rick, go. You're up.
Okay, well, the first thing is the number one obstacle that I've seen for drummers in their development is as if they play video games. It's always like they're not getting it. They're not getting it. And that really comes down to they're not practicing much. I'm like, why are you not practicing much? And then I'm like, I've done this dozens of times. I'm like, are you a video gamer? I'm like, oh yeah, I play video games. So how many hours do you play video games? Like, like at least an hour a day I'm on video games. And so I'd say it's that distraction. And so that's the number one thing that I think holds people back. Jeremy, give me the question one more time.
Why do some students progress faster than others?
Okay, so the video games is going to be the number one. The other is I think there's just if they the ones who progress the most, I'd say, are the ones who actually do schedule time for their rehearsals.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's 6 o'clock. I practice drums from 6 until 7, 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week. So the ones who really schedule. And then the other, I think, is super environmental. If they're in a musical situation, like a musical family,
mm-hmm.
who really, really excel. And then I think the ones who progress more are very focused on drums. They're not doing soccer and they're not doing a million other things. So they're pretty much focused, and that's, how passionate they are. So, and then a lot of it is on me, how well I teach that student.
Chip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what he said. I think that the focus and scheduled practice time, any student across the board that's got a focused scheduled practice regimen is going to progress faster than the one that doesn't. And the passion and dedication, that passion, that love for the drums, that quest for knowledge, that the people that have that drive in them are going to practice more and progress more faster. So that's about it for me. I like what you said, Jeremy, about practicing smart. You know what I mean? That's the key, is to make the most time, the most efficiency of their use of time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bart?
You know, a soccer ball. That little bastardo gets in the way all the time.
You know what?
So, I think it is. I think it's I agree. I think it's your passion that you put into it, as Rick said. I think it's scheduled practice time. I think it's if you're a younger student, having again where I started with the subject, I've had many students who, I can tell mom and dad don't want them to do it. And so they don't progress as fast as the kid whose dad or mom is championing what they're doing and really backing their play. I think that having that family and that team around you is important. And I think people progress at their level, and you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Right? And I tell every student that, if your practice time is here in the lesson, so be it. That's fine. That I have some students that do that, but if you're going to get out what you put into it. It's that simple. And as a side note, before we sign off, I want to throw a shout out there. It's very important. So Jeremy, I want you to answer that. And I'd like to throw a shout out there if I could.
I agree with everything you guys have said so far, although I do maybe disagree slightly with the soccer thing, just because sometimes there's a good life balance that happens between other activities and music, and sometimes
there isn't.
I learn things about drumming from other disciplines, about how your brain works and how your body works and the brain-body connection. So anyway, I was an athlete growing up, so I played football and hockey and baseball, and I don't know that it helped my drumming, but it sure was fun.
I'm joking. Too.
I know you are. I'm totally teasing. So the first biggest piece for me is quality in terms of how you practice. Quality repetitions and lots of them. So you got to get the quality first. That's the most important thing, and then you just got to rinse and repeat. And if you're doing it well, you will learn it. No matter how your brain works, no matter how easy or hard it feels to you, you will get better, and you will get better quickly if you practice smart. And best thing is to get a teacher to help you figure out how to really do that and keep you on task. The other important piece is motivation, but I think often the motivation, we talked about that spiral earlier, it comes from seeing yourself and hearing yourself improving and getting better. Then that's exciting and makes you want to practice more. And so, I think that the progress is so important to make progress, if that makes sense. Like, making the progress, getting better feeds on itself, and that serves as your motivation because the deeper you deep. The
digger you deep. I swear to drunk, I'm not God. Have some more Jack Daniels in your coffee there, Jeremy.
Sorry. The deeper you dig, the richer the treasure. That's what I was trying to say.
Woo! That was awesome.
The digger you deep.
The digger you deep.
Right? I mean, that's the whole reason we all are excited about this, because drums are exciting and appealing. And then, if you actually get good, you enjoy it more. The better you get, the more enjoyable it becomes. Would you all agree with that?
Yeah.
100.
Yes. I think
that's the name of the game.
I think there's a Deck Jazz song in there. The digger you deep.
I
think we all got to play on it. I think that'd be cool. Hey, so I want to do a quick shout out. I don't know that he's watching, but he's always on deck, and he is always on both the websites, and he's been a guest on deck both times. I don't know if you guys have seen Alex Cohen. Is in a little bit of a health crisis right now. And Alex, if you don't know who he is, if you haven't seen him play, holy cow, this guy is friggin' phenomenal. Just a phenomenal drummer. And he's having some health issues right now. And so we all want to send out our prayers, our good vibes, and our well wishes and our thoughts for our good friend Alex Cohen, to please be strong, get through this fight, and we'll see you on the other side of it, brother. But just really be strong, man. This is a scary time for you, I know, but you're you are in our thoughts and our prayers, and all of our good vibes and intentions are going out to you right now. So I just wanted to say that, because he's just the sweetheart of a guy. He's been on deck twice and just a great guy.
Yes.
Right on.
Yeah, thanks for doing that part. That was really thoughtful and appropriate.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We had a lot of fun. We hope you did too. We'll see you next week. And let us know about any ideas you might have for people you want us to talk to or topics you want us to discuss. Peace out.
Thanks, folks.
Peace out.